your stories of surprise parties gone wrong. Story 1: a few years back, we threw one for my Uncle Tommy. It was going to be at the Elks Club, where he was vice president or some dumb like that. So we all got set up and ready to go. We are waiting, and they were supposed to arrive at 6. It got to be 7:30, and we were getting worried. Turns out my aunt was taking my uncle to the park for a romantic walk, and then she would take him to the club, and he'd be shocked but they got into this huge fight, and he wanted to go home. Eventually, she convinced him to come. The excuse was he left his hat there, and it was an expensive hat. She actually had to steal his hat in the middle of the night and drop it off at the club, so the excuse would have truth to it. And when he walked in, he said, "Yeah, I heard her talking about this 3 weeks ago. I told her I didn't want a party, and here we go, a party." He knocked all the presents off the table, punched the cake, and left. He filed for divorce the next week, and then moved to Florida. Story 2: in high school, I was responsible for keeping a friend busy while her parents set everything up at their house for the party. We get back to her house. All lights are off. She walks in the door and announces I have to take a huge. Lights turn on. Surprise, embarrassment ensues. Story 3: my friend's birthday thrown by his wife. He was recovering from a horrible car accident and was on crutches and horse-sized doses of Vicodin. He walks in, and everyone yells surprise, and he slowly turns, looks at everyone in a doped-out state, and walks right back out without saying a word. Story 4: my buddy, who does way more judo than people should, flipped his girlfriend clean over during a surprise party and broke her arm. Thought she was an intruder. Needless to say, they're married now. Story 5: one time my mom told me that we were running low on funds, so we couldn't have a birthday party, and that the best we could do is take me to McDonald's with my friend, we'll call him Jack. We get to Jack's house, and Mom tells me that he is out at his pool. I walk over to the gate outside, and 20 people jump out, and are all like, "Surprise." I'm confused as I walk over to Jack and ask him if he's ready to go to McDonald's, and my mom had to pull me off to the side and explain it was a surprise birthday party. I am not a smart man. Story 6: the person we were throwing the 63rd birthday party for was coming back from a trip with his wife, and we 50 people were in the backyard with all the decorations set up and food. His wife texted us when they were 5 minutes away, and we all gathered to the fence gate where they would soon enter. The fence was about 7 feet tall, so you couldn't see anything over it. When they entered, we all yelled surprise, and his face looked like he was about to sneeze, but instead he was having a stroke and ended up in the hospital for the evening. The food was good, though. Story 7: my aunt had set up a surprise 40th birthday party for my uncle. Everyone, about 30 friends, neighbors, relatives, were hiding in the basement waiting for him to come home from work. His car pulls up. He runs to house. Everyone yells surprise, and he shits himself. Turns out he had the runs that day and really had to. We all had to wait until he got a shower for cake. I was 9 at the time and couldn't stop laughing. Story 8: I have a relevant story. My friends planned a surprise party for me. They sent out a Facebook invite with specific instructions for everybody to bring funny hats and surprise me at this local bar. Then one of them accidentally invited me to the Facebook event. Story 9: my friends, family, and coworkers planned a surprise birthday party for me at my house. In order to give everyone time to get there and get set up, my coworkers had my boss ask me to stay late at work because we might have an emergency project to do tonight. So 5 p.m. rolls around, and everyone heads home really to my house. I sit around. 6 p.m. 7 p.m. Finally text the boss that I'm headed out unless she really needs me to stay. Turns out she was supposed to have me go home at 5:30 because the project didn't pan out. Since I figure my evening is shot anyway, I head to the grocery store, pick up the dry cleaning, drop off the recycling, etc. I walk to my door around 8:45-9 p.m. to find all my friends, family, and coworkers drunk in my house. They were all a bit too in their cups to muster a coordinated surprise, but I figured it out. Ended up having a blast. Story 10: went to one of those surprise parties where more and more people show up to a restaurant until the whole party is there. Fun stuff, right? Turns out that a couple who were in our group of friends were in the same section having the divorce talk. And thing was that they hadn't been invited because they fought so much it was tough to be around them. Story 11: my friend was having her art displayed at a local coffee shop. She had no idea and thought she was just meeting a few friends for coffee. There were a ton of us, and we all waited anxiously as she walked in. She walked in saying that her dad ruined everything about 2 minutes from his shop, texting her telling her that he wished he could have made it to her art unveiling. Edit: a lot of people have been asking, so I guess it wasn't entirely clear from the way I wrote it. She had no idea that her artwork was being displayed. That was the whole surprise and why we were all there. Story 12: we threw a surprise party for my brother's 30th birthday. We did such a good job planning it that he didn't even have any idea it was for him. My sister's birthday is about 10 days before my brother's, so we told him we were throwing a surprise party for her. Since it was before his birthday, we figured he wouldn't suspect a thing. He didn't. We actually had him in on the planning of his own party. asked him for his thoughts on food, drinks, etc. We had all of his best friends, the entire family minus my sister, oddly enough over, and he walked through the door, surprise, dumbass, I'm not sister's name. He looks around and sees all of his friends. It finally registered. He was so grateful for the awesome party, and he had a blast, but his initial reaction made it feel like the biggest failure. Story 13, my buddy's girlfriend threw him one at his apartment the day before his birthday. Everyone got in their places when we saw him pull up, waited and waited, then looked out to the parking lot to see why he hadn't come in yet. He was getting blown by some other girl. Then it got awkward. Story 14, relevant Alfred Hitchcock Presents episode Happy Birthday from the 1980s incarnation. Plot: a man's quiet 50th birthday is interrupted when he is arrested for a murder from 22 years before. Turns out, the cops were just actors hired as a ruse to get him to a surprise party. The man is so stressed out by being arrested that by the time his friends jump out and yell surprise, the man promptly has a heart attack and dies. Oops. Story 15, my time to shine. My mom was having a surprise party thrown for her 30th birthday. They flew in the whole family. Her parents came, the whole shebang. On the way home from work, she was driving on a mountain road and was head first by a truck. She was driving a VW Beetle. She was helicoptered to the hospital, needed emergency surgery on her back, etc. So when she woke up in the hospital, they were trying to get her phone number to call the family. She couldn't remember it. So a house full of people were waiting for my mom for like 2 or 3 hours, and eventually she remembered the number. She was completely bedridden for 6 months after that accident. Crazy stuff. Story 16, when I was a DJ, the wife planned a 45th surprise birthday party for her husband, rented a banquet hall, a lot of food, maybe about 150 people. The husband walked in, people yelled surprise, and he got this shocked look on his face and went off on his wife, accusing her of cheating, and so on. If you can hold this a secret from me, then who knows what else you're doing behind my back. A big commotion after that. I packed up and left. No party. Edit's simple understating of psychology will tell you that he's the one around. Right? Edit spelling. Story 17, one of my friend's girlfriends was throwing him a surprise party at his house and invited a bunch of us. An hour or two before, someone posted on our Facebook wall, "Hey, what time does the party start again?" Needless to say, the birthday boy wasn't very surprised, but at least we all had a good time. Story 18, my boyfriend at the time and his female friend planned a surprise party for me while I was at work. Was definitely surprised and overjoyed that all my friends were at my house with cake and balloons and wine. However, after a while I noticed I can't find my boyfriend or his friend. Caught him on the porch making out with the girl who helped him set up my surprise party. He forgot I had a security camera pointed at the front door. Was not a good surprise. Story 19, we threw a surprise party for a coworker of mine. When he came home, he was really sick and threw up black on his cake before passing out. Haven't seen him since. Last I heard is that he had alien STDs or something. Story 20, a girlfriend of mine punched her aunt in the face, broke her nose, because she jumped out right in front of her when they yelled surprise. One hospital trip later, they decided not to throw surprise parties anymore. Story 21, one of my roommates last year had a girlfriend who was ultimately sweet, but very clingy, controlling, and an alcoholic. She decided to throw a surprise birthday party for this roommate, Kay, and had been planning it for an entire month beforehand. She invited all his friends, recruited me and the other roommates to help decorate the apartment and fix some food, had posters and banner printed out, and baked a huge, elaborate cake. The day of the party, he came home 4 hours early. The girlfriend is absolutely crushed and spent the next half hour screaming at him about how Head ruined everything. We finally convince her that all is not lost and finish decorating while Kay sleeps. A note about Kay at the time, he worked nights at a bar. He normally slept during the day and was awake at night, but today had been asked to work a double shift for some reason. When he arrived home that day, had been up for at least 24 hours straight. Anyway, a few hours later the guests arrive, and everyone is having a good time, except for the girlfriend, who is still distraught the surprise was ruined. And Kay, who is asleep. The girlfriend gets outrageously drunk and spends an hour or so trying to get Kay out of bed to enjoy this party she threw for him, and he isn't having any of it. When she finally manages to drag him out of bed, he pounds a few shots. We sing happy birthday, and he passes out again. The girlfriend at this point gives up and passes out on the floor in his bedroom. So the rest of the night was spent partying with these people we really didn't know, and then cleaning up. We left up most of the decorations for Kay and his girlfriend to take care of in the morning, which they never did. The monstrosity of a cake the girlfriend made sat in our fridge for a week before she remembered it existed. TLDR, alcoholic planned surprise birthday party for her boyfriend surprise is ruined. Both GF and pass out not 2 hours into the party and never clean up. Story 22, a girl I was dating in high school set up a surprise birthday party for me. but chose to not invite most of my good friends because she didn't like them. Well, they caught wind of this party and took me out for some drinks instead as their own birthday surprise. This was before cell phones, so she didn't have a way to get in touch with me to make up a reason to get me back to her house. Halfway through the night, one of them spills the whole story, and I decided it wise to make a rather late appearance. It was very awkward walking into a room of her drunken friends, with her crying in the bathroom, needless to say. Story 23, I worked quite hard at planning a surprise party for my best friend in the flat we shared. Her boyfriend was to bring her home at a set time. We were all sitting in the living room with our eye on the front door, waiting for her to enter as we had seen his car go by, all part of the plan, except he brought her in the back door. She walks into the living room, and all our backs were to her, and asked what we were doing. When I asked him why he brought her in the wrong door, he said it was because parking was better on that side. Idiot. Story 24, my younger sister decided she wanted a surprise party for her birthday. So she went ahead and planned it all herself, cake, balloons, everything. The best part was the reveal. She walked into where everybody was waiting for her early and shouted surprise. Story 25, my friend got back from deployment. It was my job to take him out and keep him away whilst they prepare his house. When we arrive, everyone jumps out. Friend reacts automatically, punching someone in the face and throwing himself out of the door at the same time. 2 chipped teeth and a sprained wrist. Story 26, buddy of mine set up a surprise party for his fiancée. She thought he was off to another state for a week for work. He came back early on her birthday and set up a huge surprise party for her at home. She usually gets home at like 6 p.m. from work. It's already like 7 p.m. And we finally hear her coming. We turn the lights, and she comes home hammered with another dude she was going to bang. Drama was all over the place. It was a huge, chaotic argument, people taking sides. My buddy was really pissed and faked that he was calm, and then like a cheetah jumped out of his seat and decked the dude in the face and knocked him out. The guy deserved it. He was a pickup artist and knew she was engaged. She was just an easy catch, but still she's at fault, and they ended breaking up. Story 27, dude walks in, pants open, stroking his, light goes 1. Someone jumps out screaming happy BD. Dude scared shirtless, pulls up the zip, jams a nut, screams in pain. Everyone else jumps out and screams too. Everyone screams, ribs hurt from laughing. Story 28, went out for a romantic dinner with the then wife. She was being unusually flirty, showing cleavage, goes to restroom, brings back panties in her hand, and gives to me, says she couldn't wait to get back home, etc. So arrive back home. She tells me to meet in the basement where we have our entertainment room and TV while she changes into something for the evening. Huge. Go down the stairs. Start taking off my pants. Surprise. About 30 friends in the basement for an early surprise B-day party. I fell backwards on stairs. Could feel my heart racing and barely covered, fortunately rapidly deflating. Would rather have had the intended evening's activities and didn't end up getting any B-day. Story 29, TLDR, was given a surprise party for my 18th birthday that started with me being into my girlfriend, the surprise being ruined by a hotel receptionist, and 2 sets of friends trying to dance to a shitty DJ. Party ends when 2 of us go through a wall. My now ex-girlfriend and my mother co-conspired to throw me a surprise party for my 18th birthday in a conference room at a local hotel. I was under the impression that I was going to pick my girlfriend up and we were going to go on a birthday date. I was already a little frustrated because I had made dinner reservations, and by the time she gets in the car, we're already late. She tells me this strange story about needing to take her class notes to her friend who was staying at this hotel because her house burned down. I didn't remember hearing about anyone's house burning down, and I just wanted to make our dinner reservations on time. Frustrations increase. We pull up outside the hotel, and I became more frustrated over the fact that her friend couldn't just meet her outside. When she told me I had to come in with her, I said something along the lines of, Jesus Christ, Lauren, or what the... This was 7 years ago. At this point, the details are a little fuzzy. Anyway, we get inside the front doors of the hotel, and the lady at the front desk asks, "Are you here for the party?" I was really confused, but whatever I just said, no, Lauren kind of shushed her, or ick, like I said, fuzzy details. Well, within 30 seconds of walking down the hall, I hear the distinct voice of my friend, Brent, from an open door a few feet away. At this point, I realize what's going on, grab Lauren and give her a huge kiss, apologize for being such a, ran inside the room, and proceeded to have a really awkward birthday party. 2 sets of my friends, church friends and crew friends, and then a really shitty DJ. But nonetheless, I felt more love through that party than any other time in my life. What really made the party was at some point I picked up my friend John, lost my balance, and we both went through a wall. All in all, surprise was ruined. I felt like it was a typical awkward high school party, but it was fun. Story 30, apparently, I am so utterly oblivious that my surprise party was ruined numerous times in the weeks leading up. My girlfriend had set it all up weeks in advance and invited my friends, family, even co-workers. Every single group at one point or another slipped up and mentioned the party in front of me. I honestly had no clue. The day before the party, my brother was in town, and I had hinted that we would have a great time tomorrow night. My girlfriend apparently cringed. Everyone was sure I knew, but no one directly asked me. Lucky they didn't. I was blown away when I got to the party. No one believed that I didn't know. Story 31 female friend of mine threw a surprise party to her boyfriend 4-year relationship and invited all his close friends and some of her own friends as well. He was at his mom's place having a mini party with his family, whilst we were all waiting at Hischer's place, where the couple would then be supposedly going out for dinner. We had decorated the house with really awesome stuff, brought a DJ to play music, and brought really nice food. 3 cakes, one made by his mom, one made by her mom, and one brought by one of his mates, and quite expensive presents. It was all adding up to an awesome night. The dude then realizes that something is going on, and after 30 minutes of texting, he tells her that she should off since she knows that he hates surprise parties, that he ain't going to show up, and that he's going to go watch a football match instead. He checked himself in on Facebook at the match 20 minutes later, ignored everyone's calls and messages, and about an hour later, we were waiting and eating some of the food since we weren't going to waste all this awesome stuff on this dickhead. He shows up after half the people left and broke up with her. On my birthday, I confessed my love to the girl I was seeing at the time. She shot me down bad. I was a husk of my former self, just kind of broken. She insisted on hanging around for the next few days, saying it was to show she wanted to be my friend still, but back then I was too much of a pushover to tell her to leave. On Friday, she dragged me to the movies Tangled, a love story of all movies, and I couldn't figure out what she was thinking. Turns out she was planning a surprise party with my friends and didn't want us breaking up to ruin my birthday. I ended up sitting on the couch with my face buried in a pillow for the entire party. I never want to turn 22 again. Story 32 walked in on an XGF another guy. She tried to say she was planning to surprise me with a threesome and just got started without me. I was actually more insulted that she thought I was dumb enough to fall for that lie. Lol. Story 33. I had been talking to this girl I met through friends on MSN. She lived in the same town as me, and we would talk every day. Not on the phone, though. Supposedly she was afraid of talking on the phone. Before I go any further, yes, she was real. Anyway, I kind of started to like her, and evidently maybe she did too. I say that because I get a call from her best friend. She told me that THJS girl always talks about me, yada, yada, yada. So she invites me to her friend's surprise 16th birthday party. I came early, met her parents, her brother, her friends, and some of her extended family. They all say, "Oh, so you're Kyogi," so we get the word she's on her way. We close the doors and hunker down. She comes through. She seemed really happy until she saw me. She started crying and wouldn't talk to me. She hid in the back room and didn't come out until I left. I still don't understand. Story 34. When my son was turning 5, he told us he wanted a surprise birthday party. He gave us the entire rundown on how it was going to go, and we followed his instructions to give him exactly what he wanted. He had been out with Grandma, and when he walked in the door, all 40 of us yelled surprise. He just sat down on the floor and cried and refused to even stand up. It took us about 20 minutes to calm him down enough to stop crying. Needless to say, we won't be throwing him any more surprise parties. It was pretty funny, though. Maybe that's how we'll scar him for life. Surprise parties every year. Story 35 more of I wanted to be a huge moment. My birthday. I tell wife, let's have friends over for barbecue. She says, okay. I spend afternoon mowing yard and setting up patio, etc. About an hour before people are supposed to show up, wife says I need to help her run to store to get supplies. I'm filthy, covered in grass and dust, and sweaty as, so I say, let me take a quick shower. She says we don't have time because she needs to start cooking, etc. Take a shower when we get back. Okay, I reply, slightly irritated to have to run to market dirty, but no biggie, right? Did I mention she's dressed up? Well, she seems to be dressed really nicely for the market or a barbecue, but I didn't really think much of it. Hop in car, head down road. She's driving, pull into upscale restaurant parking lot. I'm like, WTF. Then I see all my friends' cars parked in parking lot. Did I mention I was dirty and sweaty? Well, I was dirty and sweaty and smelly as I wanted so bad to be and throw a complete fit and go back home, but I didn't. I spent the evening in a nice restaurant with my nicely dressed wife and friends while I looked and smelled like pretending to have a nice time, coherent, abounding snail steer plate hurry badge, deranged, cautious, homeless. Story 36 parked in the driveway because I'm dumb as he pulled in and asked what I was doing at his house. He figured it out and I ruined the surprise party. Story 37 posted this before, but it fits in God if I don't love this story. I didn't host it, but my friend threw a surprise birthday party for me. Pretty awesome. Right, the one problem was that at the time I didn't drink, and literally everyone else had got hammered. I still didn't really mind too much. Until two of my friends' ex-girlfriends showed up and started getting hit on by other guys at the party. All of a sudden, the party turned into a war zone. Actual fights were starting to break out. So me being the elegant gentleman I am, I abandoned the party and went to my girlfriend's house and lost my virginity. TLDR, doesn't matter, had. Story 38, I don't like surprises, and my sister and bro-in-law took me out to distract me while my family set up surprise back home. I had no idea and was just having a wonderful day hanging out. When we arrived home, everything looked normal because my family parked their cars a block away. So as walking in, there were streamers hung, and my first thought was just like, what the? Then right before I even escaped through them, my family jumps out from behind the furniture yelling surprise. It scared the out of me, and I just stood there with a blank face staring at everyone and walked awkwardly away down the hall to my bedroom. I still feel like an idiot to this day thinking about it. Story 39, when I was 13, my mom's then wanted to throw her a surprise 40th birthday party. My job was to keep her out of the house after work school long enough for him to set everything up and for everyone to arrive. I told her I wanted to use my saved-up allowance to take her shopping for a new purse. We were leaving the store, and as we were walking to her car, two men rushed by us and took off with her purse. She was happy with the party, but her worrying about having to cancel her credit cards, etc., put a damper on the occasion for sure. Story 40, we were throwing a surprise party for one of my friends a few years back. We were all hiding out in her apartment waiting for her to come home. When she received a phone call, we let it go to the answering machine, then proceeded to sit there and listen to her boyfriend break up with her via answering machine message. Surprise, Ted Mosby. I think everybody heard the girl gets home from long day of work and tries to relax with some peanut butter and her canine, when her family planned a surprise party. That story's been going around for so long that it has become an urban legend. Story 41, my friend's wife family decided to throw a surprise party for him. So we took him golfing to get him out of the house so they could get things ready. Friend decides to use another friend's cell phone and chooses to scan through his text messages typical of this guy and sees texts about the party. Friend looks up from the phone and says, "So surprise party, huh?" When we got back to the house, birthday boy played it off well, and I believe to this day his wife thinks she's surprised. We all still felt bad because of how excited his wife was to do this for him. It's hard to see somebody so proud of their effort only to know it really didn't work. Story 42, right before we moved to Europe last summer, 2012, my husband's family attempted to throw us a surprise going-away party. My parents were in town visiting, and we went to the beach, and on the way back, my mother says she needs to pee, but there's nowhere around to go except my mother-in-law's house. So I call her up and ask if she minds us swinging by for a quick chat pee. She seems a little annoyed, but she hates drop-ins, so that was expected, but she agrees because we're about to move, and she wants to see her grandson as much as possible. We pull up and see balloons out front, in German flag colors where we were moving. I look at my husband, and he kind of has the same look on his face. Is this say? So we get inside, and none of the guests are there. Nothing is set up. Nothing is ready. Mother-in-law is like surprise in the most deflated tone ever. Turns out my parents were supposed to get us there 2 hours later, under completely different pretenses, but I screwed it up by suggesting the house as a quick potty spot. My mom couldn't think of a quick excuse to not have us go there. And Emile didn't want to refuse us and have us upset and not want to go over later. So we hung out, and eventually the guests showed up, surprised that we were already there. It was a lovely get-together, but I really wish they had just let us know beforehand rather than played it as a surprise. Husband and I both dislike surprise parties, and we were in ratty clothes while all the guests were dressed nicely because they knew about it ahead of time. Story 43, we didn't find this out until after the party. But hey, race the story, a bunch of my friends and I planned this big surprise birthday party for a friend. We'll call him Andy. He was turning 18. The plan was that he would be spending the day with his girlfriend, and then when they came to his house in the early evening, we'd surprise him. What we didn't know was that earlier that day while he and his girlfriend were hanging out at her parents' house, they had a little ordeal. Both of them were virgins at the time, and they began talking about the possibility of doing it. Well, that morning while they were fooling around in her room, she suggested that they try it as a sort of birthday present to him. She had bought condoms for him and had never even tried to put one on before. The way he describes it, he was ready to shatter that meat tunnel, and all his years of training by watching were about to finally come to use. He put the condom on as she lay spread eagle on the bed, and as soon as he tried to put it in, he went limp as a bonefish. Anxiety and embarrassment overcame him, and after a few moments of trying to get it up, he excused himself to the bathroom. He probably stayed in there for 5 minutes, scolding his for pussying out on him, furiously tried to jack it off back to life, couldn't get it up to save his life. So he came out of the bathroom, ashamed, and told her they might need to try another time. She started crying and saying that it must be because he's not attracted to her started this big argument. He finally calmed her down, and they went to the movie they were supposed to go to. He says that all he could think about on the way back to his house where he was told would be empty without any family was trying it again and getting it right. He started to talk sexy to her, and she started stroking him a bit in the car during the drive. They got to the house, and they made out in the car for a bit, feeling each other up. So they get out of the car, and she trails behind him as he opens the back door, ready to head straight upstairs and give her the bone. Surprise. From 20 of his closest friends, the lucky few of us found out later why he had such a defeated look on his face when he opened the door to find us all there. Later on, he got it in. Story 44, my family threw a surprise party for me when I was 17 years old. The surprise ended up being that 4 guys all thought they were my boyfriend. The first guy I had told time and time again that I was interested in nothing other than a friendship. He ended up throwing his cake in the street along with a cross. He got me crazy Jesus lover, tried to convert me a few weeks prior, and left crying 10 years later. His mother still glares at me when I see her. Another was my ex-boyfriend who I broke up with several weeks before, but who somehow thought we had gotten back together because I was being nice to him, read, saying hello to, and not flat out ignoring. The third was an absolute nut who I had met 2 weeks earlier, but who somehow made it to my party and attempted to serenade me with his acoustic while staring into my eyes and telling me I was special in front of everyone. The last was the only one I was actually interested in, but by the end of the day, it was clearly blown. Absolute show. The whole party scattered, and I was left with a ton of cake and dirty looks from 24 people as they exited. Of course, everyone in the small community knew by Monday. To this day, everyone still maintains that it was entirely my fault. TL, Dirk, don't be a psycho and think a girl who is nice to you is your girlfriend. Edit words. Story 45, I turn onto our street after a boring day at work and noticed, wow, there are a lot of cars. Someone must be having a party. I get to my house and can see the lights are off by looking at the window. It's around my birthday, so I am suspicious. I quietly walked around to the back of the house and climbed into my bedroom window. A door was closed, so no one heard. I opened the door and walked out and said, "So what's up?" I surprised them. Ha ha you. My friend's family threw a surprise birthday party for his elderly great-aunt a few years ago. The shock gave her a heart attack, and she died. Story 46 created a throwaway for this. I hate surprise parties, and here's why. My mother is severely mentally ill. 3 of the surprise parties that come to mind: 1, rank not so crazy, just bad. My father's gone bad for the first Gulf War. She decided to have a surprise coming home party. I was like 7, and my job was to go run errands for an hour while she set up, and everyone came over. The problem, she gave my dad a list of to-do that would take at least 5 hours. My dad was a Marine, and he was not capable of leaving things unfinished. So after an hour, when I was supposed to get him home, he would not stop until the list was completed. I ended up crying and throwing myself on the hood of his truck, and it was just a mess. He was so pissed at me, and we were 4 hours late, and the party was almost over by the time we got there. My mom was pissed at me for not getting him home. He felt awful for the reaming office hours he gave me for behaving so childishly as a child. It was just an emotionally destructive incident. 2, rank lucky I didn't kill myself. In 5th grade, we had moved to a major city, and I was having real trouble making friends. My mother, who was never in reality, decided to throw me a surprise birthday party. She didn't know who any of my friends were. Not that it mattered. I didn't really have many. So she invited my entire 5th grade class. But as usual, she didn't really plan, so she mailed out the invitations the day before. So I get home, and the house is decorated for a party. I was excited to get to spend some time outside of school and build some friendships, and no one showed up at all. I was devastated. It seemed no one even wanted to try to be my friend. I cried for 3 days. Finally, one of the kids in my class said that he had just gotten the invitation. I just assumed that no one had gotten their invitations either, but I never really recovered. 3, rank got it. When I was 13, she threw yet another surprise birthday party for me. We had moved 3 more times, and I was well-adjusted, had a bunch of friends, and was very happy this year. So to ruin my birthday with a surprise party this time, she really had to work at it. Even though she knew who many of my friends were, she didn't invite any of them. In fact, she invited all strangers who I had never met before. None of them even went to my school for my birthday. My dad knew I was saving up for a Sega Saturn and had saved up half the money. So being the awesome dad he gave me the other $200 I needed. A group of the kids at my party were real holes, and things weren't going well. They had already accidentally broken a couple of my toys, and eventually this led to a fight, and I got my kicked by 3 kids. They got on their bikes and left. My dad got home from work, and I told him about the shitty party I had just been through. So to make up for it, he said, "Let's go get your new Nintendo." My dad calls all video game systems Nintendos, so super excited I want to get all my hard-earned and saved cash. Well, It turns out the kids who had beat me up and broken my toys had also found my piggy bank and had stolen all my money. Luckily, my dad was awesome, and he did everything he could to save all his money, and he bought me a Sega Saturn a week later. To this day, I do not celebrate my birthday. Edit me. I forgot the best worst one. This one is going to seem unreal, but I swear by my throwaway account is true. My first year in college. I'm living the college dream of doing whatever I want, so I've literally gotten 7 non-ear facial piercings. My parents are finally divorced. My mom, who I visit once a month only because if I don't, she just shows up at my dad's house, keeps nagging me that she wants to meet my girlfriend. I, of course, don't want this crazy anywhere near my personal life. I refuse to even tell her my girlfriend's name, as she had in the past looked people up in the phone book. So my birthday is coming up, and my girlfriend at the time starts acting funny. We leave for our date, and I ask her what is wrong with her, because it is really starting to drain on our relationship. As we make a turn, she finally spills that my mother had broken into my house while my dad and I were away and had taken her phone number off the fridge. This was in time before cell phones, so if my dad needed to contact me, he needed her home phone. So we are pulling into this restaurant that no one ever eats at, and there's my entire mom's side of the family and my girlfriend's entire family. Mind you, I've always taken out all the facial piercings when around these people because they were all very judgmental holes. My grandfather tells me never talk to him again. My grandmother won't even speak to me. My white trash cousins are all excited because I'm obviously out of their will now. Her parents are just completely horrified and don't want her to see me anymore. Her sisters start crying because she is all sensitive and thinks my face must always be in some excruciating pain. And there's my mom, just happy as ever to everything up. She also kept calling my girlfriend by the fake name I had given to her. So everyone thought I was a cheating. The GF knew, as I had told her what I had done to protect her identity. But to everyone else, it didn't matter, as I showed up as a sideshow freak, and they were more than willing to believe anything bad about me they could at this point. Edit also, to add, my dad had to stay in Iraq ever after the first war was over because of his position. So for my birthday, he was away for, my mother forgot the date, and no joke, went in my room and took a couple of my toys and put them in a gift bag and gave them back to me. Surprise, no party. Another good one, once my parents finally got divorced, the agreement was she would give me $200 a month to help me get through college, pay rent, bills, buy food, etc. A little after my birthday, I got a birthday card from her with $50 in it. She then proceeded to not send my $200 of support for all in November and December. Of course, I'd already grown accustomed to not counting on her, so I wasn't that bad off. The most she ever sent was $150 once anyway. The kicker is, I had spent that entire $50 on Toys for Tots because I would much rather someone else's holidays not be ruined by people forgetting or being a horrible, irresponsible person, or the economically unendowed, of course, but more for the truly neglected kids. Surprise neglect. To this day, I make it a point to get at least $200 worth of Toys for Tots around my birthday. If my surprise parties made you feel bad, how about throwing something in the bin next time you go by in Walmart?